Welcome to Soul Inspirit, where spirituality meets real life. I'm Summer Paradiso, a psychic medium, intuitive guide, yoga teacher, and artist here to help you reconnect with your highest self. Here, we dive into the practices that strengthen your connection to intuition, higher self, spirit, and source. We'll explore my signature Soul Inspirit method, a fusion of movement, meditation, and creative expression designed to help you release emotional blocks and reclaim your power. Because to move through life with alignment and ease, we must first embrace vulnerability. Whether you're just spiritually curious or fully immersed in the ocean of woo-woo, this is your space to explore grounded spirituality. Expect soulful convos, real-life stories, creative tangents, and grounded practices to support your transformation. So take a deep breath, grab your coffee, tea, or whatever keeps you sane, and let's explore how to bring more magic, meaning, and soul alignment into your everyday life. Let's do this. Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to today's episode of Soul Inspirit. I'm Summer Paradiso, your host, and today is a guest episode where I am interviewing my client, colleague, and friend, Shannon Dillon. Shannon is a certified IAWP life and wellness coach and a single mother living in Virginia with her daughter, Maya. Through her business, Boldly Becoming, she helps women reconnect to their worth, prioritize themselves without guilt, and create lives that actually feel aligned, drawing from both her professional training and lived experience. This conversation that I have with Shannon is honestly all over the map because there's so much to talk about. She's engaged in quite a transformation in 2025 with both my 8-week transformation and Siren Song one-on-one coaching container. She is a go-getter and she gives a shit about stepping into the next evolution of herself. And she is shamelessly vulnerable. I appreciate her so much, and I'm really excited for you guys to get to know her. So without further ado, here's the interview. Okay, guys, I am here with Shannon Dillon, client, colleague, and now dear friend, and I'm so excited to have you on the pod today. Yay! So why don't you, just in your own words, we got the formal intro of who you are, but can you throw us a little bit of nonchalant, like, who is Shannon?
Well, Shannon's been on quite a journey, but I think, I'm somebody who is like a lifelong student of evolving, of trying to grow as a person. And, I've gone through a lot of challenges, being a single mother, dealing with abandonment, childhood trauma, trying to navigate life. And I have learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, what I need to do to take care of myself, and have a lot of sympathy for other women who are on that same journey over, trying to navigate it, want to improve, include self-care into their daily routine, because I think that it's so important. Part of my journey is, although I have a corporate job in corporate America, now I'm a certified life coach. And that was something that I was really passionate about. I wanted to be able to take all the tools that I have learned along my journey. And if I can help guide somebody to have their journey be an iota easier than mine, I want to be able to give back in that way.
Oh, there's so many places to start from. I'm so excited. Let's go ahead, because you opened that right up with the vulnerability door. We're already talking about abandonment and stuff.
Let's go.
These guys. Let's first dive into, like, when did woo-woo even become a thing to you? Or when did, like, we call it like a healing journey. I like to call it your evolution journey. When did your, like, tippy toes start walking into this world?
I would say several years ago, I got fascinated with crystals. I love beautiful things. And that was what first drew me in, because I think crystals are beautiful. Just, I was very drawn to them. So that was kind of my first step into it. And, you know, beyond just the beautiful nature of what the aesthetic of what they are, I started to lean into understanding the energy behind them. I started buying books about crystals and how you can use them to manifest things. And that was my gateway drug into the woo woo, if you will.
The luxury gateway drug. I love
Yeah.
it. Was there a particular crystal that really drew you in at first?
I would say initially very drawn to rose quartz and amethyst. Like started with the basics.
Yeah, but well,
Yeah.
tell me why though. This is so interesting though because, you're drawn in by the pretty things, but the pretty things have
Mhm.
so much other power besides looking pretty. So what was it about amethyst and rose quartz, if you remember?
I think for rose quartz, obviously it represented love. And that is a huge piece of my journey, a self-love, not, romantic love was intertwined in there. And I was trying to navigate that. We can get into that later. But self-love and just having that in my life was important to me. So I think that that's, why I was drawn to the rose quartz. The amethyst, I think, just as a general manifestation tool. I think it's beautiful. I think it was kind of the one that, if you're going to start somewhere with a crystal, maybe that's, your starting one. So I think that's why I gravitated towards those first.
Yeah, amethyst is like the gateway crystal, right? Like that
Right.
is.
Yeah.
What is there any crystal that you're working with right now or something that you have in your space that you just feel a lot of energetic support from?
Yeah, so I'm in my office right now, so I have pyrite in there. And I'm a Capricorn that really meshes with my Capricorn energy. So I also have some smoky quartz in here right
Ooh,
now. That's what I've got. I've got some citrine behind me over there. So that's what I've got in here right now.
he's working with it. I love it. And I'm the Taurus energy too. We both have this like pretty things
Mhm.
vibe. So I'm here for all the crystals being a little hoarding dragon. So you started with crystals. Tell me more about how this evolved. You got excited because they were pretty, but then you kept going and
Mhm.
going. So what was next?
I think I started using them um, as manifestation tools. The first thing I remember specifically was I was trying to get a promotion at work and I really wanted this job. So I, you know, got out my little crystal guide and was like, what do I need to use to help me get this? And, in addition to the crystals, it was also like writing affirmations, like, you know, I have this job is mine, like those kind of things is where, and I followed the guide and, it took a couple months. It wasn't like an immediate, but it happened. And I was like, yep, okay. And I understand, obviously, it's my skills went into that, and, but I think instead of focusing on the worry, the anxiety of, "Am I gonna get this job?" I haven't heard back from them. I was focused on the affirmation of it, and that I am gonna get this job, and this job is mine, and it will come when the time is right. And so I think that's kind of how I started using them in my life. And now that's a regular part of my life, whatever it may be that I'm trying to bring forth.
Oh, I love this. And this is just a good golden nugget for everyone. A little pyrite nugget is like when you shift your attention, that is where the energy goes. And,
Mhm.
time isn't real, even though we really want it to be, especially us Taurians and Capricorns. Like, we want it to be real. We like this grounded stuff. But, like, your energy moving through those crystals and manifesting helped with that. So, are there any other scenarios that you can think of where you're like, heck yes, I manifested that?
I think generally when I started focusing on um, in shifting my money mindset, and I did use crystals, I did use affirmation, but instead of sitting in the fear of, not being able to manage money or money is not flowing into me, I shifted it to money is flowing to me. I am a money magnet. You
Mm.
know, it- I saw the way that I approached money changed. My fear of not having enough shifted to it will come. And since then, in my life and in my professional career, my salary increased, that just I saw it come back to me in a different way. And I think that's powerful.
Yeah, for sure, and the awareness there too of these limiting beliefs is so
Yeah.
powerful. I'm curious to know, literally, because spirit's like, you need to ask her this because someone needs to hear it. But when in your life did you feel like you didn't have enough? Or was that something you just kind of came to this world with?
No, I think it was, you know, in my early 20s when I kind of went out into the adult world without financial education, I guess it would be, and just kind of thought, hey, money falls from the sky. Let me just charge it. And I got myself in debt and I didn't, and that was a real struggle for me that I had to work through. I carried a lot of shame with that for decades that, and kind of put a story on myself, told myself a story that I didn't know how to manage money and I was not a good steward of money. And, whatever money came to me, I was going to blow through it because I just didn't know, I didn't have those skills and I would never be able to figure that out. And so I've worked really hard to change the story I tell myself and change the behaviors. And I've changed behaviors, obviously. And I see that. I definitely see that now, in my later adult life. I've shifted that. But that was a real thing for me. That was a real challenge for me.
Yeah, I love that we can touch on this for a second because you've not only done my 8-week transformation, you've also worked one-on-one with me, and we have done a lot of money mindset stuff. And it's so interesting to me when successful people, because you are successful, you're like a boss babe in corporate America, and now you're starting your own business, you're doing the things, and people who are successful can still have this lack mindset, this scarcity mindset, and it influences your everyday actions. And so, is there any specific moment or modality that you participated in? Because I don't know if it was with working one on one with me or if it was something else that kind of made you realize, like, oh shit, I have a scarcity mindset. Like, when did you have that aha moment?
I think that I have had a sense of that for a while. I don't believe it was until we worked on it together and you and I on one-on-one and
Mhm.
really dug into the shame that I carried over getting into debt and having to go to my parents and ask, help bail me out of this jam I've got myself to, and the guilt that I felt with that I really was able to work through and release that. And that was a huge thing for me because I carried that shame for so long. And while doing that, like giving myself, I guess, grace and recognition that look how far I've come. I make a very decent salary. I have implemented all kinds of things financially that are responsible. And, yeah, I still like to shop. I still like to treat myself like I'm a Capricorn, okay, guys? Like that is true to who I am, but I I am way more responsible with how I manage my money. And I also don't live in fear of the money going away,
Yeah.
right? Because that's not a helpful mindset, right? To live in fear of like at any moment it could be taken away because you're like, that's part of the scarcity mindset that you can articulate probably much better than I can. But when I released that, it feels as if money flows to me much more easily. Money shows up in my life in ways I'm not expecting.
Yeah. I love it. No, I feel like you articulated it perfectly. Yeah. Scarcity mindset is a bitch because
Mhm.
it pops up in all these different weird ways. And while you did have it very specifically to money and carried shame specific to money, there are so many people too who carry these scarcity mindsets in other capacities. And so trying to translate where this guilt and shame is coming from when it doesn't line up all the way is always just really interesting. But gosh, this past year, even Shannon, because I've known you now for about a year,
A little over
right?
a year. Yeah, a
Oh
little
God,
over a
it
year,
feels like
yeah.
a lifetime because this past year, 2025, you stepped into new Shannon Dillon. Like, holy
Yeah.
shit. So, I mean, can we get a 2025 recap? Like, what? What you did so many things, and we have to highlight like all of the different things you did because y'all, like, you can't just rid yourself of these emotional blocks or limiting beliefs by just the affirmations with the crystals. I want to be clear on that.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
she
Oh, yeah.
started there, guys, but she has done so much. And so let's do the highlight reel. Like what, and we can go down whatever rabbit hole appears. Like what did you do in
Yeah.
2025 that like really cracked you open?
So I started 2025 recovering from total knee replacement, right? So I was 2 months out from that surgery in January. So I'm still, going to physical therapy and walking with a limp and, I'm recovering from that. So that's where I started at the beginning of the year. I think, remember, you'll have to tell me, like, maybe it was February that you and I, or we were at an event and you mentioned your 8-week transformation program. And I was very intrigued about that because it included yoga. And I knew that I was at a point where I needed to start moving my body as part of my recovery, but I needed to do it kind of in a controlled way, in a safe way, in a modified way. You were incorporating meditation, which I had already started to slow adopt and really found very helpful. And you were including art. And the art was the final piece that I was like, yeah, I want some of that. Yeah, I want some of that. Because creativity had been something that I had put on a shelf in while I was raising a child by myself and, being a breadwinner and all the things, the chef, the taxi driver, the tutor,
Everything. Yeah.
everything. And I missed that. I don't call myself any kind of an artiste by any stretch of the imagination, but I enjoy it. So that really called to me. So I was like, yeah, I want to do that. So we started that. That was in the beginning, I would say the first 3 months of the year, I think, if I recall.
You would think that I would know exactly when it started, but I don't because it was a blur. It was like February though, if I recall
Yeah, yeah,
correctly.
yeah. So we did that. And I mean, I'm going to toot your horn for a minute. Like the way that you lead meditations unlocked things in me that I had not been able to go, like I hadn't been able to go there before. And we would kind of journal afterwards. And that would really, things started to flow out of me that I really needed to address. I think just moving my body in a safe way, you helped me with modifications. That felt very safe to me. And the art was like, I just loved it so much. You had such creative ways, assignments, if you will, to give us to use it that I had never done before, never it would never have occurred to me before. So, I love a prompted anything. Give me a prompted anything and I am in love with you. So that was, I think, the first step of me, like, I'm all in here. I am all in here. And this year I am going to get down into the weeds of my shit and we are working through this.
You will toot Shannon's horn for a second, guys, because Homegirl is a good student.
Yeah.
Give her a task or a check, is gonna do it. And it was, no, it's beautiful though, because it's like I can lead you there, but
Hmm.
you gotta go for it. And you went for it. You dove
Yeah.
faith first. And I also, something that makes me so happy, like when this was just really recently when we did that little writing class together and you were sharing how you were going to, gosh, okay, that's a whole other rabbit hole. So wait, you've taken art classes or like given time like from Marlowe or from like you've given yourself
Hmm.
time to create in other spaces
Hmm.
even though you're saying you don't identify as an artist, like you are now at a place that you will create a container for yourself for creation no matter what it looks like or whatever. You're doing that, and to me that is, I mean, that's like gold star, blue ribbon of showing that you have, conquered this big mountain that a lot of people I think are still climbing in creating space for yourself?
So, one of the things is in my self-care journey was had to go back and identify, what brings me joy that I had let go or, hadn't been able to pursue for whatever the various reasons. And creativity was one of those things. And so, yeah, I made a promise to myself in 2025, I was going to fit it in and I was going to explore different ways. So the first thing I did was in the 8 week, you know, program that you held, I did, we incorporated that art and that knowing that I enjoyed that so much. I was like, yes, I want to continue doing this for the rest of the year. And opportunities presented themselves, right? We have a mutual friend, Marlo, from the Art Path, who does, has art classes. I signed up for things like I went online and searched for things like the writing class that you mentioned. The writing is probably my preferred form. It is. It's not probably. It is my preferred form of creativity. But doing other forms of art, I think, fuels the writing for me. So, yeah, I, I always encourage people to try different.
Well, and this translates or can be generalized across so many different things too. Because if you think of, my husband is training for a marathon again. Not my thing. That's his
God
thing.
bless.
But God bless him. He's got great calves and I love it. But so, in marathon training, there's still weightlifting. There's still like he'll get on the rowing machine. There's still these other modalities that are going to help serve the end goal. And so you for sure, and you're an amazing writer, but the imagery or the words that could come as you're creating artwork, it's all supporting the same thing because you're stimulating your sacral chakra. You are creatively expressing. And I don't know about you too, but I find that if I'm really zoned out in creating art, more so in like a doodle sense where I don't have to think so hard, I get these downloads, I get these ideas or mindset shifts or limiting beliefs like, hey, you think this and this is not aligned. Like I get those. Does that happen for you when you're doing like your doodles at all?
I can't say necessarily that's what it is for me. It's more of a release where I get out of my own head,
Yeah.
the swirling thoughts that are always there, you
Hmm.
know, I get away from that. So it is a break for me.
Good. I love that. So, okay, we've covered so much. I'm so excited. We need to dive into when you experience the world as a single mother, breadwinner, chef. So, can you just express to me the struggles that were happening during that time that you can now look back at through kind of a third party lens and just see like what parts of you have you evolved from, if that makes sense.
No,
Yeah.
it does make sense. So I think I was very much in survival mode during that time, but I didn't realize that I was. I was just doing the things. I was kind of an autopilot. And, you know, a, a quick funny story. I have a very dear friend, Dawn, who also has a child very close in age. And I remember one time we were on the phone and she's raising her, toddler son with her husband, and I am raising my toddler daughter by myself. And she said to me, I don't know how you're doing this. And I was kind of taken aback by it, and because it was the first time I stopped and thought, "Oh, wait, this is hard." She's looking at this as what I'm doing is really difficult, and I am just going because I don't know any other way to do it. I have no other option, right? I'm just doing it. And I think that's how I approached it is I have to do this, so we just go. I didn't care for myself during that time. I there wasn't really room for it, quite frankly. And I think I was so exhausted that even if I had free time, I was just like, you know, I was kind of numb, frankly. I'm just
Yeah.
sitting on the couch at the end of the day like a zombie. And that is how it went for 18 years, pretty much. I carried a lot of stress, and I think I'm just now recognizing I carried some anger that I just associated as stress, but I think it's a separate emotion that I had there. And it wasn't until my daughter graduated from high school that I took a deep breath and I was like, okay, okay, I can breathe now, because I didn't have to manage another person's life. She was going to college and she, was more independent now and was able to do her own thing. She drive herself around. Like, I'm not the chauffeur anymore. And I sat down and I was like, oh my God, that was really fucking hard. And I finally gave myself the credit. I was like, you just did something really fucking hard for 18 years. For 18 years, that was really hard. And it's not to say that I am still not parenting, but I think of myself more as a consultant, not a manager. And it's
Consultant's
different.
great.
Yeah. And then I said, it's time for me. It's time for me. And that's, one of the starting points. There was another major thing that happened that, kicked off the last 2.5 years of my life where I really dove into this deep healing and self-care journey. But yeah, the single mother of it all, that was a lot.
Yeah. And it is so interesting too, because I was just talking about this, I think yesterday. I don't remember if it was to myself or to TikTok or something. It'll pop up somewhere, guys. But this concept of being an observer of yourself and how when we're in fight or flight, especially
Mhm.
raising a toddler by yourself, it feels nearly impossible to be an observer. Or if you're in a toxic relationship, or if you're in any sort of scenario, being able to step outside of yourself to be able to view what's truly happening is a really difficult thing to do. It is possible.
Mhm.
And I would argue you need to develop the ability to do it before these things happen. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And so I'm really curious to know, Shannon, because you are moving into this life coaching arena and you have shared with me you really specifically want to help single moms. And
Mhm.
so, you know, I can see where the fire was fueled, but tell me more about like how are we stoking this fire? How are you moving forward? What do you see yourself doing and sharing with these women that you're going to help?
I think, yes, it is very important to me because when I was going through that journey, I didn't have a lot of friends who were single moms, quite frankly. And it is a very different place to be raising a child by yourself. There are people who have, I think, better situations than I had where the father is consistently involved and you get maybe the weekends off. Well, I didn't even have that. But I want people to have community, one, because I didn't really have that. And that has been so helpful to me, even in these past 2 years. And I'd love to talk about that, the
Yeah.
community aspect of it. But also recognition from somebody who's been through it, somebody who has learned lessons from it, who can say, I know how extremely hard it is to fit yourself into that schedule, but if you can find 10 minutes, it is worth it because it will not only benefit you, it will benefit your child. I mean, it would be completely naive of me to think that my daughter did not pick up on the stress that I was carrying and that didn't come through in my parenting. Less patience, less energy, frankly, to just sit and have fun times, relaxing times, because I was I didn't have any time to do it. You know what I mean? Because I'm keeping the house clean and I'm doing all the laundry and, all the responsibilities fall on you. You don't even have somebody to share taking the garbage out with. Like, you have to do it all. Um, and so, if I can offer any insight, any support to anybody who is a single parent, no matter the circumstance, whether it's, divorce, chose not to marry the person, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whether you have a great co parenting relationship, at the end of the day, if you're still at home with a child by yourself and you're primary at that home by yourself, you need support.
Yeah. I feel like it's a mic drop moment because I'm like that. Yes, yes, you need
You need support.
support. And
Yeah.
so we, this really is a great opportunity then to dive into community. And this, this is really pertinent around here too, because we have so many military families. You know, people find themselves at home with their kids, even if they do
Hmm.
have a partner who's gone.
Hmm.
To me, at least when I'm observing it, I'm like, gosh, that seems like single parenting, but like
Absolutely.
in intervals or like interval single
Absolutely.
parenting.
That's almost harder in a way. Sometimes I recognize for military spouses, you are a single parent, let's say for a 6 month deployment, and then you have to do the integration again, which is extremely challenging. And then you have to flip back to the solo parenting of it all. Like that back and forth is hard. That's hard.
Yeah, because you, as the matriarch, I mean, as the mother, you are, and I don't want to, we love men, guys, but we're really
Yes.
for the women right now. We love
Yeah,
men, but
absolutely.
we obviously love men in some capacity, but women, let's talk about this for a second. You're regulating your kids' emotions when the other parent leaves, and then you're regulating your kids' emotions when the parent comes back, and you're regulating the other parent's emotions when they come back, and you're regulating
Yeah.
the entire environment. You don't have time to regulate your own, so you're just existing, like you said, in this
Yeah.
perpetual state of fight or flight, but you don't even know that you're in that state because it's autopilot, it's
Mhm.
default. And so again, we're going to move to this community aspect, but I have to ask one more question about just kind of this default mode of fight or flight after this year, especially. Like, how do you know now when you are entering into that previous default mode of fight or flight? Like, how can you recognize that?
I can feel it in my body, right? I definitely feel it in my body. Now that I know what it's like not to be in that state, I'm like, oh, this is lovely. I enjoy this here. Okay. I literally feel lighter physically, mentally. I'm a happier person. I am like just the stress of it all being removed. So I think the first place that I notice it is in my body. It is in the tenseness, in the anxiety kind of started to kick in and swirl around, I think is where I personally first start to recognize it.
Where does anxiety show up for you? Like, where in your body?
My shoulders.
Same. Yeah,
Yeah.
right up in the shoulder. Because it's kind of different for everyone, so I'm always curious to know where it hangs out for people. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that makes me just really happy to know that you can recognize it because I feel just recognition and observation of self is just so crucial. And like you are a living example of someone who has moved from one side to the other. And it
Hmm.
just makes me really happy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about community because, girlfriend, you're a pillar of like you show up to the community stuff. Like you know some people. Tell me about it. Like what are we
Because I
doing?
love it. I love it. And that was one thing I failed to mention about your 8 week program was the community piece of it. Like bonding with those other women. And we were vulnerable out of the gate, which I loved. And that was another promise I had made to myself. Like I'm sharing it all. I'm telling everybody I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I I have learned so much. Like maybe one thing I share is helpful to somebody else, and that's beautiful. So that was one way in which I embraced community last year. I also, if we could talk about Siren Circle, I was all up in Siren Circle because of my woo woo curiousness. I was like, sign me up for this. I want to know all the things. I leaned into that and have met some really, really cool women and learned a lot. And so I'm really into that also, with business opportunities,
Mhm.
with my boldly becoming life coaching, doing, we call them networking, but really it's like a community of really badass women
Yeah.
supporting each other, right? And
Yeah.
then we have another mutual friend who has another community group that, I'm also a part of. So I was like, yes, all the things. Sign me up for all the things.
Yeah. Well, and so you're talking about Rocky with her
Yes, our garden sisters.
garden sisters, and then we have and like, because her place is a big hub. And then we have Liz, who was a previous guest on this podcast, and both of our
Elevate.
business coaches. Yeah.
Yes.
And she's an Elevate, and she has meetups monthly. Like, there's, gosh, talking about it, like, we're so fortunate to have all of these
Yeah.
really fucking amazing women in our
Yeah.
lives and this ability. And so, what, like, vulnerability is one thing to gain, is like feeling comfortable to be vulnerable, because I just feel like a lot of us have been just kind of silenced and don't feel
Conditioned.
comfortable sharing,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, conditioned to not share. And so, we have these comfortable spaces to share and be vulnerable. What else do you feel like you've gained from the community in kind of this stepping into your next evolution? Like, what is something else that you feel like you may have gained?
Well, one thing is I made new friends, which sounds kind of like funny, but making new friends later in life isn't always easy. You have to find people it's easy when it's proximity based, like it's your mom groups and it's your kids' friends, your kids' friends' mothers. Like that's the easy thing because that's the environment you're in. But when your kid is off at college and you're not in the mom groups anymore and you want to find people who have similar interests, that's not always easy to do. And sometimes it's uncomfortable for people. And so, I wanted to lean more into that. One of the things that I treasure the most is my friends. You have your lifers, right? Who I love and adore and have been through all of the versions of me and are still around.
Mm-hmm.
But, yay for new friends. Like there are some really amazing people out there. So that's one aspect of it, I would say. And also, I think it's validating to hear other women talk about their struggles and their triumphs. You know, as somebody who is launching a business and has never been an entrepreneur before, to have examples like yourself and have Liz, coaching us, I see women who have been successful in it. And therefore, I can say, why not me? They can do it. And yeah, there's some self doubts that creep in, and everybody's, authentic about that and speaks about that. And there's hurdles. But I am not operating from fear anymore. And I was operating from fear for a long time. And I didn't do things because I was afraid I was going to fail, or maybe even afraid I was going to succeed and didn't know how to handle that. There's that part too.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you did 8-week transformation. You did one-on-one with me. You've done Soul Garden Sisters. You did some classes. Like, you did the coaching certification. You joined Elevate. Like, tell me about all of these different things that you were doing.
Yes, it may not be chronological, but after the 8-week program I did with you, I was working on my life coaching certification, and I had been about halfway through when I had to have knee replacement surgery. So I picked it back up in 2025 to finish it. And I will say I had a little bit about picking it back up because the closer I got, the more I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to do something with this once I finish. And that's with that fear that came.
I remember talking to you about that, and I was
Yes.
like, pick up the damn book.
Yeah. Yes, I was doing this stuff with you and all the other things that I was doing. I was able to work through that and be like, no, we're not doing this anymore. You have paid for this. You are doing it. You know, what the fuck? Just try it. Just try it. Go out there and launch it. So I get my certification and I launched towards the end of 2025. I launched Boldly Becoming. And when I tell you, I was building the boat while I was in the water. I did not know what I was doing. I was fucking terrified, but I was learning things all the time. And I had such wonderful support from my friends. And then of course I decided that I wanted to bring Liz into my life because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm serious about it. I want this to be successful. And this is not something I've ever done before. So I want some expertise in this. So I hired Liz as business coach. So did that as well. So that then I was part of Elevate. I am still part of Elevate. What else did I do? Oh, so I signed up for a writing class, just a one-off. Like I found this at Creative Wells.
Creative Well Foundation, and we were at a Creative Mornings, which is their monthly speaker comes, and
Hmm.
yeah, and you were there.
I was there. I had signed up for it. I didn't know anybody else was coming. So I
Yeah.
show up for the speaker and then I'm going to go to this writing class. And all of the sudden, like all you show up and Liz shows up and Jessica shows up. Like all these people start showing up. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we all, listen to the lecture and I mentioned to you I'm going to do this writing class after. And you're like, I want to do that. Okay.
Jumped right in. Yep.
So we do this in class. It's like a prompted journaling class. And it was amazing. And it's like one of those moments in your life where it unlocks something, not the plan for the day at all.
For either of us, I love this shared experience because it was equally as like a new spark illuminated. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. So we're both, in the class and we're writing. And I was like, I just kept thinking, I'm like, I love this so much. And I have always wanted to write a book. I have had several readings where I have been told a book is in my future. And, you and I had lunch afterwards, and I brought up again a mutual friend, AJ, who is a book coach. And I was like, oh,
Hold on. Pause. We have a lot of shout outs here, guys. Check
okay.
the show because we're gonna put all of the we got all the shout outs today. This is like friendship community moment. I
Yeah.
love it. So yes. So AJ, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so and I was like, I'm so fascinated by this book coach idea. And I was like, I would love to do that because I really want to do it. And you felt the same way. And we share, I didn't even know you were interested in writing a book until that day. And
No one did.
yeah.
It was kind of a secret. Yeah.
So, and then after lunch, I went home, scrolling on Instagram, and AJ's post pops up that she's running a special at her book coaching program. And I was like, immediately text you. Is this a sign? The sign?
Was like, yup. Like, con with AJ. And now we are
And we
both
both, now we're both writing a book.
Yep. So Shannon has done all of these things. She's now writing a book. She's starting this new business. She's in a coaching program, which like I think solid move too, because because you are such a good student, like you're gonna go so much further faster because you have a coach for that. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
just amazing. Did you do anything else?
I have a full-time job.
That's cool. She's a mom consultant. She is working one-on-one with me, and which I don't make you do too many things, but when we do work together, we go deep, hard, and
Deep.
fast.
Yeah.
We go deep, hard, and fast. And there was something, I'm bringing it up now, where you were like, I don't have time for that. I don't think I have time for that. Last year, when we were talking about, well, I say last year, so a few months ago,
Yeah.
when we were talking about relationships, and we were talking about just kind of looking into our future and what we're seeing for ourselves. And it was so interesting to me that you were like, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you were doing all the things. But the second that we started bringing up relationships, she was like,
nope.
So we're going there for a second, Shannon. What you got for me?
Well, I think one of the major shifts that kind of pushed me towards this past 2.5 years, if you will, is not long after my daughter graduated from high school, I ended a relationship, a very long relationship. And it was much needed. It was probably like my first real action of self-love that I had done in a really long time, where I was like, this is not serving me. This is not in my best interest anymore. I deserve more than, and this is not to bash that person. It's just, I needed to move on from that situation. And I made a vow to myself that I wasn't going to be in a relationship for a full year. For the first time in my whole adult life, I was like, you're going to be by yourself. no friends with benefits, with, none of that, right?
All the way by yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because one, I never wanted to get myself in another relationship where I settled for less than I deserved. And I knew that in order to do that, I had to do some serious work because there's stuff there that I knew was there, but I couldn't get past it. I was aware, but I couldn't get through it, if you will. So I made that promise to myself and I kept it. I kept it. And honestly, it was really peaceful. Like, it was,
Dramatic.
yes, it was really peaceful and I got a whole lot done. And I was like, this isn't so bad. So I haven't been in a relationship since then. That's been 2.5 years. And I think it is my biggest fear is putting myself out there again, being vulnerable, and seeing if all the work that I have done on myself results in me attracting a different kind of man. And I am scared of that. That is scary to me. So when it comes up, I'm like, nope, no, thank you, I'm good.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you're good, but it's what I think is irrelevant. But I think this is just one of those things where it's like one, you get to decide, and two, it's one of those where we can just identify like there's always this next evolution to step into, and
Mhm.
what each next level requires is a really sturdy platform of self-trust. And
Yeah,
so you have this self-trust in, with scarcity. Now it's like an abundance mindset. You have this self-trust in your ability to do a business, even if you're building the boat while you're in the water, to have come out with a business name, an Instagram, get a business coach. Like there's a level of self-trust there and integrity where you're like, I'm doing this. And so you're just showing like you're building these different platforms, and you get to decide when you want to fully step onto that next level of self-trust for a relationship. And I just wanted to bring that up, not to like make Shannon just be vulnerable for fun, but because people need to hear this, because I know that there's lots of people where, relationships are hard. And again, we love men, and they are
mhm,
also hard to they're hard, and
yeah,
so it's like you said, it was peaceful and you got a lot done. There's like
yeah,
relationships require a lot of emotional energy, and I think you did it so right though. Like you now know how to regulate yourself. You know how to identify when you're moving into fight or flight. You now have this super solid understanding of who the fuck you are and what to do when you start not feeling like that. And I
yeah,
just think, and you took the like 495 highway, like HOV lane there. Like you you went you went
all
there fast,
in.
and
Yeah,
it's beautiful, and I just think it's really cool. So thank you for being
thank you.
vulnerable and just sharing all of this with us. Is there any little Actually, no, I'm going to ask this just cuz I know you're a reader and you're writing a book. What is like your favorite book just for fun, like fun read that was entertaining, and then self-help read? That was totally off the cuff. I just want to know now.
Okay. So for entertaining, I am always reading 2 books at a time minimum, right? The Wow, one I read recently that I loved just for fun was it's Correspondence or Correspondent. I have to look it up by Virginia Evans.
Mhm.
Um, and it is a book written in the form of letters back and forth between the
Ooh,
main character. And it was such a cool, unique, you know, book in a way that it was written, but also, and it made me kind of miss the form of letter writing, the old-fashioned writing
yeah.
of letters. Like we don't do that anymore. There's no anticipation of, something in the mailbox. Like who that anymore. So I really enjoyed that for fun. That's a really great book. I am in the midst of reading the Book of Alchemy, which is a book about how this author used journaling through a traumatic health scare in her life, but
Mhm.
also how she continued to use it as a tool. And that speaks to me in such strong way because I love journaling. I am obsessed with journaling. It is a form of therapy to me. So to have somebody else write a book about how journaling has meant so much to them in their life, I was like kindred spirit. And so anybody who, is interested in journaling or, believes in the power of journaling, I would recommend that book. It has a lot of prompts in it too, if you're interested in prompts for journaling, because some people need a little help.
Yeah, no, I love that. Someone needs like the faucet to be turned for them for the water to start
Right.
running. I get it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing those because we'll put those in the show notes too. And I might need to look at the Book of Alchemy because I feel like you've mentioned that before, and now I'm like, okay, I should probably look at that.
I love it.
So thank you so much, Shannon, for joining me today on the podcast. This was a good conversation. I want to keep
Yeah.
talking. I really appreciate it. I will have all of the links in the show notes for people to come and find you and follow you. And I just really appreciate your presence here today.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. There you have it, guys. Was that interview not amazing? I hope that you took away more than one golden nugget because she had some good shit to say. And I'm honestly going to be looking up those books that she shared and also just noodling on how I can help my clients become the observer more often because I feel like that was just such a strength that Shannon developed this year as I was working with her. And that's something that I really want to help my students do is become the observer of themselves in their life. Because when you can observe yourself as a third party, you can then begin to recognize what does not fit. And once you do that, then you can start to change. I'm really excited to announce that my next round of the 8-week transformation is happening in February. This is the 8-week transformation that Shannon was a part of and spoke about in the interview. If you are interested in this 8-week transformation, I am hosting a free virtual workshop on February 4th from 11 to 12:30. And I would love for you to come experience the Soul and Spirit method for yourself and see a little snippet of what Shannon was talking about. The link is in the show notes to sign up for this webinar, and I cannot wait to see you there. As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. Please leave a review if you have a chance and share it with someone who you think might benefit from what Shannon had to say today. I can't wait to chat with you guys next week. And until then, move, reflect, create, connect. Talk soon. Thanks so much for listening to Soul in Spirit. If this episode moved you, sparked something, or just made you feel a little more like yourself, I'd be so grateful if you left a review or shared it with someone you love. It helps more souls find this space and join us in raising the collective vibration. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to share what came up, I'd love to hear from you. DM me on Instagram or email me anytime. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep showing up because the real magic shows up when you do. With so much love.